Let's get into it. Sold Not For Sale podcast. Coach Colin here. We got Joe Rogan talking about a whole bunch of things. I mean, the equality of outcome. Is all of this craziness happening in the world, in the country? Is it all intentional? Who could be behind it? They touch on George Soros. There's a whole bunch. So we're going to play the Joe Rogan clip first, and then I'm going to expand on some things that they're talking about, especially the whole thing of, is this intentional? We're going to be touching on that. Communism, Marxism, a whole bunch of stuff. So the Joe Rogan clip first, then I'm going to show you this communist, socialist, BLM activist and the wild things that she had to say. They talk about it in the clip, but I'm going to expand on it a little bit for you. Then I'm going to talk about how a small change in law can actually bring about a huge difference. Wait till you hear what they did in California and what they could possibly be doing all over the country. Then we got a video, communities are just fed up with the crime. Then we got an article about how rapid growth is actually a destabilizing force, and we can apply that to a lot going on today. Then we got a woke kindergarten teacher. She is going full Marxist. I can't wait to show you what she has to say. Then we got Ben Shapiro talking about people who are from America who are actually for communism, how bewildering that attitude is. Then we're going to talk about George Soros and why criticizing him now is no longer anti-Semitic. There's a reason for that, a big reason. And then we got Jordan Peterson talking about communism and how much it's failed and how much death and destruction it has caused. Because in this episode, we are analyzing why people feel like everything needs to get burnt down, and what do they really mean when they're saying this whole system has to get burnt down? What are they actually working towards? Let's get into it. Don't forget about the new channel I got, Coach Colin Media. It's where I break away from the Rogan content. Hit that subscribe button. We're almost at 2,000 subscribers. For now, let's get ready to watch Rogan.
A lot more than $300.
That's right.
Like, what are they going to do? That's ridiculous. But my point was, where I was getting to is, like, everybody wants a meritocracy, but if you can keep it so there's no equality of opportunity, if you can keep it that way, you're never going to really get a meritocracy, and that would be a better way to control it.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, this is full tinfoil hat. Like, the reason why all these social justice people are, like, so excited about pumping billions of dollars into Ukraine and billions of dollars into whatever's happening with Israel and Palestine, but zero talk about doing that to Baltimore, zero talk about doing that to Detroit. Like
Maui.
That's the only. Well, Maui is that's a different thing, but that is also another thing.
But no, I feel you because the crime.
Yeah, the crime. But like, hey, there's got to be a way to fix this. There's got to be some sort of a solution. But if you don't, if we never get, not in 10 or 20 years, never get to equality of opportunity, you're always going to have a certain amount of disenfranchised people. You have a portion of your population for sure that's going to be in trouble. They're going to have problems. Then you always got solutions. You got opportunities. You've got like this little moving game.
Yeah.
If everything is even, and then it's just competition, and then America thrives to be the greatest utopian idea of what we had hoped it would be, well, then it's really difficult to control people because they recognize that freedom is one of the most important aspects of having this kind of amazing opportunity to do whatever the fuck you want.
Brother, this is why I wear a tinfoil hat now all the time, basically. Except I'm not really afraid of the radio waves, so I don't really wear a tinfoil hat at all. I'm more afraid that this is intentional in a lot of places, in a lot of ways.
But
we know in those cities, we know.
But if they played it out this much, have they thought about it and said, you know what, we want more crime, we want more illegal aliens, and if we keep the chaos, and then we keep passing laws, we get further down the road.
If you read the Marxist literature, which is unfortunately my damn job, you can derive a number of different conclusions. One of these conclusions that you can derive absolutely is, do you know what repels a revolution in a country better than anything? Stability. Social stability. So if you can destabilize a population, then you can get them to crave a revolution, or you can, like with the Patriot Act, you can get them to assent to sacrificing their liberties for security. So if you can destabilize an area, then you can cause them to want to have radical political change. We just saw this. This woman was in the Fox News this morning, so I had to double check. But she's talking about, was she from Maryland? She's in the government. She says that she wants to burn the country to the ground so her ideology can rise out of the ashes.
Whoa.
Right. So she said this publicly, and she's the equity coordinator in one of these cities.
This is very true. The reason that I'm interrupting is because there's an ad coming up.
If you can find it, Jamie, you can pull it up. I don't know.
Through that really quick. So the woman's name is actually Kayla Carter, and she has decided that not just that everything should get burnt down so her ideology can rise from the ashes. She goes on a whole Twitter rant. It's wild that all of these people who have these woke positions that are supposed to be in favor of the citizens, of the downtrodden. They have all of these wild ideas that seem to put them in a position of power. It's really, really interesting. One more click here, guys. Let's get back to the episode right now.
Who's causing these crime problems? It's those DAs. We know who ran the DAs, who paid the money to run them, is the Open Society Foundation. They call them Soros DAs. We finally broke the spell that saying that this very, very rich man and now his very, very rich son are using their very large amounts of money to do things that aren't necessarily great politically.
Well, they used to be able to say, if you criticize George Soros, you're an anti-Semite. And that was what they always went with. They always went with
like,
that.
you got to see this thing. And I don't want to overload Jamie again, but in 2004, Soros gave an interview to the LA Times. And you can actually look this up. I just thought, that can't be real. It's real. He said that he thinks he's a god. He said that he always suspected that he might be a god, and he kind of controlled it for a long time. And then finally, he just kind of realized he is, and he kind of gave into it.
Is it possible that he was doing exactly what you were doing when you were making jokes about George Floyd and January 6th?
I mean, maybe. I'm trying to think of a time where I would have talked to the Los Angeles Times in a deliberate interview and said, I'm Zool.
Maybe he was a little drunk, and he was just like, why am I doing this bullshit interview? I'm worth $30 billion. Let me just talk some shit.
He reads pretty intentionally, but it's possible. Maybe George Soros was doing some shit posting to the LA Times.
A good time.
I mean, I would shit post. I would love to shit post these big journalistic outlets now, but 20 years ago, I don't know.
Well, now they're all falling apart. If you want to shit post, you better do it quick.
I mean, you know what I did in the past. I did my shit posting.
You did a lot of shit posting.
I did some epic shit posting.
What was the thing that we were just looking up before that, though?
Where we the Fox thing?
Yes.
Yeah, because like you should see this is for real. I was like, I saw it this morning.
Yes,
like,
the lady said burn it all down and have her idea of what society.
It's unfortunate. Like I took a
ashes.
screenshot and I can pull it on my phone, but nobody can see that.
Well, there's a lot of people that don't have anything, that haven't accomplished anything, where that sounds like a good idea.
That's right. So if you can make these people,
it's just the headline. I'm trying to find the video.
My ideology can rise from the ashes.
The equity officer.
Well, I mean,
it's like, okay, lady,
equity, but if you've created a whole industry based on equity,
but also says I don't want to work.
This is
exactly what you were just saying.
She says I don't want to work. She doesn't want to work.
So we've got to ask the question 100% for real, though, right? Equity official wants her ideology to rise from the ashes.
Right.
What ideology is it that she wants to? And it's the equity one. Well, what is that?
Right.
Do you know the definition of equity?
What is it?
It is an administered system in which what's the word I'm looking for? It's an administered system in which shares are adjusted so that citizens or participants are made equal. So it's not equality of opportunity. It's shares are adjusted so people are made equal. So that's when you and I go to the range and I shoot the bow and I suck and you shoot the bow and you put it through the hole. Then Jamie goes over and pulls my arrow out, moves it over 3 inches and sticks it in and like, James tied you. I can't beat you. I have to tie you.
Right.
Or we pull your arrow out of the bullseye and we move it over and like put it like right below mine in like the 3rd or 4th ring out. Right. Actually, I missed the target. Let's not lie. Let's not brag about myself.
Twitter account. It's worded slightly differently.
I can't wait for society to collapse so my ideology can rise from the ashes. What's different about that?
Burn. I mean, the word burn is different. You know?
Rise from the ashes? It says the same thing. That's what we read.
No, there it is. It's in this other quote in 2020. So it's a different. So Fox has stitched some things together here.
Okay. So a different quote says, been planning for how we will eat and live and grow after we burn it all down. Well, I think the idea is that like there's enough money. If you take away the money from the billionaires and distribute it evenly, no one has to work.
Yeah, that's right.
It's like a 12-year-old's idea of what to do with money.
It's exactly what it is.
And it's like, do you like phones? Okay, who do you think makes those phones? Who do you think designs those phones? Who do you think works really fucking hard to make sure that the new Samsung Galaxy S24 Ultra is better than the iPhone? Who the fuck do you need competition?
Yeah, the person who does that is somebody who's willing to lay it on the line for a huge reward if it works out.
They want a yacht.
They want a yacht.
That guy wants a yacht. He's
right.
like, I can see myself right now in the fucking British Virgin Islands, partying with my friends on this yacht. That's what he wants. So that's why he's willing to work so hard. If you fucking get free money, you're not going to work that hard, and you're not going to get the Samsung S24 Ultra.
No.
You're not going to get that.
As in the thing is not going to exist.
It's not going to exist.
Nobody has the drive to make it.
No one's going to make it. You're going to be forced to have imagine that person who said that. Imagine if that person had to design electric cars, had to put together a manufacturing plant, had to figure out, imagine some fucking person who says, I don't want to work. I want to burn it all down. I don't want to work.
So my ideology can rise.
And you take them seriously, and this is a person that's in charge of, this is a thought person, a person who's in charge of ideas, and a person who's in charge of implementing some sort of a better system for society, for real?
Yeah, no, an ideology is a word people don't understand. I had to read in it.
It's a cult.
That's the word I was going for. Thank you. It is. It's a cult. It's a cult. Okay, so what it is, ideology is a fancy word for a mythology that the society buys into. That has a direction and it has activity. It's a cult. What we're looking at is the dynamics of a cult. Everything will work out if everybody believes it. We know how it'll work. Nobody else knows how it'll work. Yeah. Put us in charge. Obviously, when it doesn't work, somebody else is at fault. That's actually, do you know that that's actually, you can talk to people who still believe that the Soviet Union could have worked out, and they say the reason the communist countries failed, because obviously, there are catastrophes, hundreds of millions dead, nothing works, they collapse. They say that it was because there are capitalist countries pressuring them from the outside that prevent them from working. So you can say, I've had this conversation. So if it can only work if every country is communist, and they're like, that's right. That's a global cult, is what that is. That's not real. That's fantasy land, and that I think, because equity means socialism, as I just told you. I think that redistributes shares to make participants equal. I think that actually kind of shows that this is cult mentality that we're dealing with.
It is cult mentality, but it's ingenious. This is what's ingenious. This is the genius aspect of it, is that they've managed to cast such a wide net over what it means to be progressive, that they've included all these radical Marxist ideas that everybody dismissed forever.
Yeah.
And they threw them all in with this gender stuff and LGBTQ stuff, and then they threw that all in with race.
Yeah.
And then they threw that all in with immigration. And then somehow attached it to funding international conflicts.
That's right.
At the expense of the people, the poorest people, who could benefit the most from that money.
That's right. And using other people's pension money to fund a lot of it, or to get it off the ground.
And if you oppose it, you're fascist. It's kind of brilliant.
It's sort of brilliant.
It's kind
Kind of brilliant. Well, you know what? It's a lot of Saul Alinsky. I bring it up all the time, and I'll keep bringing it up on both channels. Read that book, Rules for Radicals. You'll understand everything that's going on in the current landscape, in the current administration. The one thing that he says right at the end there, just to touch on the wide net that they cast, it's LGBTQ SLIA plus BLM ADL. It's everything. They just grab as many minorities as they can. And I've talked about it so many times. People always ask what the plus is. The plus is whoever. Whoever. You're an ally? Great. Straight white male who has a bunch of white guilt? Come on over. You know? Straight white female who just doesn't want to be a bad person, wants to be a good person? Get on in here. Everybody. They just gathering up people. And that way, when they stand up to have some kind of revolution, they have a massive amount of people on their side. And they still get to call themselves the minorities. It's incredible. It's absolutely ridiculous. Let's get into this lady that they were talking about. Here she is right here. Her name is Kayla Carter. Look at that. It's always the pretty ones that are insane. Am I right, guys? I mean, kidding. I'm sure she's very nice. Very cool at parties, I'm sure. Don't know why they use the American flag alongside of her. She is anything but American. This is the tweet that they're talking about here. Today, I co-hosted an occupied space with dozens of people who have committed their lives, businesses, and money to Black liberation on all days, every day, each day. Light workers already been planning for how we will eat and live and grow after we burn it all down. So when Jamie was talking about, the word burn, no, she actually used the word burn. This is actually her Twitter account. This is actually what she put out there. But she put some more stuff out there, guys. According to her ex posts, Miss Carter, I doubt it's Mrs. Or it's probably Mrs. I should actually say. On her ex post, it doesn't appear to be enthusiastic about her role and blames capitalism for forcing her to be in the workplace. She'd rather be a collage artist or a lady of leisure. I'm not gonna make any bad assumptions. I'm gonna assume that means she just wants to lay down in comfy sweatpants. Okay, wasn't the first thing that came to mind, but I'm gonna give her the benefit of the doubt. That's what she meant. Tired of being underpaid. Also tired of applying to new jobs. I don't want to go back to selling what? I didn't get to read that one. So that's what she used to do. But this economy is getting desperate. So she's actually in charge of what they were talking about, actually in this position, and also saying that she's going to go back to selling illegal substances. Amazing. Engaging in important dialogues exploring the impact of capitalism on daily life. It's Tuesday. It's a Tuesday and I have to work, she wrote on X. This post included a screenshot of a text message exchange. The outgoing message said, "White man calling, I got to go." It's a real special black privilege to be able to be so racist and look down on the current system of capitalism while massively benefiting from it and benefiting from being black. Like, she's in a position that she got into because she's a person of color. Then she has a problem with it and is upset that there's white people who she has to work with. This is incredible. This is nuts. If I just took away the color and said that, I should actually do that. I should go to people who seem left-leaning or college campuses, read that out and be like, who do you think said this? They will all say straight white male. Take away the colors. No white man calling. I'll just say, I'll reverse the roles. And people will be like, yup, so racist, so racist. And then let them know it was a black woman who said it and see how their heads spin. I need a new job, but the problem is I don't want to work. I just want to lay in bed. Being a girl, can anybody help with this? She's actually sending those tweets out. Again, that is Kayla Carter. Okay, she's looking to change the world. She's looking to burn it all down so she can lay in bed all day. It's so wild. Now, we're going to talk about how you can change a little law and how beneficial that can be to... Oh, do I still have it highlighted? Oh, damn, I lost it. Man. Oh, man. Okay, found it. Perfect. Okay, here. Hardly any Californians know. Let me show you guys this. So hardly any Californians know that in 2014, Governor Brown signed a bill that amended a state statute amending the maximum sentencing for misdemeanor crimes by 1 day from 365 to 364 days in jail. This was deliberately done to avoid current federal laws that provide for the deportation of illegal and legal immigrants in this country who have received sentences of 365 days or more. So this person actually, again, when they're talking about, is this deliberate? Is this intentional? Yes. Maybe it's not on the highest level. Maybe the guy eating ice cream and taking naps all day in the highest office, maybe he's not all responsible, but there are people who are doing things that are very intentional. Because this guy did this, he has made it so many illegal immigrants. When you look at somebody and you're like, oh, they committed this crime, why didn't they get deported? Oh, they committed this crime, well, why didn't they get deported? Well, if it's under a year, if it's just a day under a year, which it is if it's a misdemeanor, they're not going to get deported. And then they're going to be in the jail system. And then they'll get released early for good behavior. And then they'll be back on the streets. And then they'll do it all again. With newly enacted jail and prison division programs, the Propositions 109 and 47, Governor Brown and company are effectively preventing the federal government from removing violent and recidivistic illegal immigrants from our midst through the deportation process. Interesting. And again, a small change in law, small and intentional, slow and intentional. That was 2014, and look where we are now. If you're ever wondering, how does this stuff is this intentional? It's very intentional. You look at the border, it's very intentional. You look at the economy, all of this is very intentional, and we're going to get into why in a second. I'm going to play this video, though. Just some people who are upset with the crime. I want you to hear, again, just, is this intentional? How the police chief and the DA talk about crime and the situation that these people in the Bay Area are dealing with. Check this out.
The crowd inside was eager to talk about violent crime and started interjecting as District Attorney Pamela Price tried to go into a presentation about Criminal Justice 101.
Some people want to know it because everybody does not know it, okay?
Address the
Okay.
The frustration wasn't just aimed at the district attorney. Captain Clay Birch from the Oakland Police Department was questioned about what officers are doing to prevent crime.
Brothers in blue, I know your hands are tied, but you gotta be doing some preventative stuff.
Yes.
You know, you standing here on the corner right here in Montclair, you can hear the bucket cars come up here robbing us blind. You know? Amen. I mean, you know, please talk about preventative, not a crime happens.
Captain Birch tried to explain how the department's hands are tied, especially when it comes to property crime.
If all we have is a burglary and my officer sees 5 cars being broken into and that car takes off, we can't chase that car.
But a lot of the anger tonight was directed at crime sprees where kids are the suspects. District Attorney Pamela Price said in a recent case there wasn't enough evidence to take a group of kids to court.
What happened after they were let go?
They probably attacked someone else. Yeah, I mean, they're vicious little monsters. Many concerned residents wanted to hear more about how criminals are punished.
I just want to say that there must be consequences.
Yes.
It's unreal that there are no consequences for these children.
Price did talk about the movement within the state to decriminalize kids, a movement that she identifies with.
One of my goals is that I will give young people hope. That because I was on doing some things that I shouldn't have been doing, but because some people believed in me, that they helped me find another way.
Many residents, though, say at this point they no longer feel safe in Oakland and they want more concrete solutions to the problem. But at the end of the night, for some, more frustration set in.
A lot of jabbering and ranting that really didn't add much value.
How are we going to solve these problems? I mean, there's still no solutions.
So white people, black people, old, young, everybody very upset with what's going on. And again, back to that question, like, is this intentional? Well, it seems intentional. You know, we don't have to talk about it, but, you know, I'll touch on it. Defund the police. Defund the police. That started as something that was, oh, that's so good. That's so smart. So smart to defund the police. And it ends off with a police chief being like, well, we're not allowed to chase that robber. Well, we're not allowed to hold that person who just stole all this merchandise. Well, you're an employee. You actually can't stop someone, or you're the owner of a store. You can't stop someone from stealing from your store. And also, we're not going to arrest them. And if we do, we're going to let them out again. That's where it leads to. So is all this intentional? Well, was defund the police intentional? Yes. So is the result, if you do something intentionally and then you have this result, is the result intentional? I would say yes. What did they think was going to happen? They didn't put anything. When this all happened, there was nothing put in place of what cities are going to look like afterwards. Nothing. It was just cops are demons and they're racist and some of them should be fired. Most of them should be fired. We're glad that they're retiring early. We're glad nobody wants to become a cop now. And now look what you're left with. And then people have the nerve to get mad at the Michigan police station for endorsing Trump. like, of course they are. What do you think they're going to do? Of course they're going to endorse Trump. Why wouldn't they? They're like, nobody likes us except for this one guy. This one guy really appreciates us and he wants to be president. Okay. Well, we want him to be president too, obviously. And smart choice by them to be so unified in it. From the president of their association to the chief to the commissioner, everybody very, very supportive of that whole thing. Now, rapid growth as a destabilizing force. This is very, very interesting. This was written by somebody named Mancor Olson Jr. Okay, he wrote this in 1963. I'm just going to read off just the first paragraph, see if it doesn't sound a little bit similar to what's going on right now. Many writers and reputable scholars. Oh, I can't even click on it. It gets dark. Okay. Important public health officials. Let's just move on. Okay. They have argued. Let's see here. Oh, I hate that I can't click on it. Okay. Implicity argued that economic growth leads towards political stability, and perhaps even peaceful democracy. They have argued that economic development is one of the keys to stability and peace in the world. Now, I just want to say right away, doesn't that sound a lot like what Trump had going on? Now, I'm not going to say there was peace in the streets and nobody was getting robbed and there was no violence and things turned into a utopia. No, I won't say that. But the fact that he made sure that the economy of America was running well and he made sure to stay out of wars, that did lead to some peace, right? It did have people not leading peaceful lives. People still had their problems. Poor people were still poor. You know, you're below the poverty line. You're still below it. But I'm just saying, it's funny that this one president was trying to push that type of thing. And it's actually something that's a key to stability and peace in the world. Just having your economy grow. Now, let me lower this a little bit for you guys so you can see it. Peace in the world, it is conditions of want and instability on which communism breeds, and that economic progress serves as a bulwark against international communism. It's a very interesting article. Again, you can't see this article unless you pay this. You don't pay this site, but you have to have an account to read these articles. You get to read 100 a month. This is not a plug or anything. It's just something that I use when I want to read about certain aspects of things that aren't just available by a Google. So you should really look into this. They just talk about how if you excel, like if you bring in rapid growth, it destabilizes things. And it talks about the economy, right? And it talks about foreign aid and how that can actually aid in not having so much communism spread throughout the world. Don't know if I agree with that so much. You know, I think America was in a different position in 1963, but I do look at it and say, well, rapid growth. What is rapid growth right now? Well, all the people that are being let into the country, that's a form of rapid growth. And that has destabilized things largely. Everything that's coming across the border that isn't people and is substances, well, that's making the growth of that is causing a lot of this destabilization as well. Everything that's happening in terms of the population, the economy, drugs, all of these things are aiding destabilization, and you can see it all around you. Do things seem stable? You know, and then we go back to the word rapid growth. I'll say that to rapid change. Defund the police was rapid change. And what did that lead to? It led to destabilization, you know? So it's something that I have to read more of, but just reading that first little bit, I was like, oh, okay. I'm like, it's linked to communism. I'm seeing all these things pop up throughout the country, and it's aiding these communist Marxist type of things because, like James said, what's the one thing that repels a revolution? Stability. So if you can take away stability and you can have rapid change sweep through a nation, you actually have the ability to usher in a Marxist communist type of regime. And you can do it effortlessly. Now, let's move on. There is a woman who runs an organization called Woke Kindergarten. This is her. Oh, she's wearing one of those scarves too. Wow. Again, don't know why. Okay, this one's like a burning flag, I guess. I get it. But here's what she had to say. Again, another one of these people where, you know, you hear that Kayla Carter, what she's suggesting. What is she saying? What does she want to burn down? She wants to spend all day in bed and be a lady of leisure. And she thinks the whole system that she right now is just bathing in, that she's wrapped up in like a cozy blanket, that needs to be burned down. Do you think do you think there's anyone in Cuba right now just laid in bed, wrapped in a blanket, just a woman of leisure? Are you crazy? How much you have to work just to get by? Your whole family has to work? Your living conditions? You don't get to do that. You only get to sit around and be a lady of leisure in this country. Unless lady of leisure means something else again. Let's not touch on that. Let's assume it means she just wants to be a couch potato. But you only get to do that in places like this. You only get to do that. America, Canada, UK, you only get to do it in the free places, and UK is barely a free place. Canada is barely a free place. You only really get to do that in America. It's very interesting. But this is another woman. What's her name? Let's see. I can barely pronounce this name. This is her name. We're just going to say it's like Akia Gross. They, them. Okay? We'll just go with they, them for short. Let's just keep it short and respectful, okay? I can be respectful. They said, I believe the United States has no right to exist. I believe every settler colony who has committed genocide against native peoples, against indigenous people, has no right to exist, Gross said in a recent Instagram post. It's crazy that if you say hashtag natural immunity, you're gone. But if you say this on Instagram, Mark Zuckerberg's like, it checks out. Looks good. Y'all are demons. Y'all are the villains. We've been trying to end y'all, get free of y'all. I believe free Palestine from the river to the sea. Of course, she has to throw that in at the end. But it's also funny because they really do accuse you of everything that they are. The fact that she is again, she runs an organization called Woke Kindergarten, okay? Where she's teaching young kids about this type of ideology, about this anarchist, have no respect for authority, the whole system that you live in, the country that you live in is evil, it all needs to be burned to the ground, you need to be a rebel in this whole thing. That's what she's teaching young kids, 4, 5, 6 years old. It's incredible that there are schools letting this woman teach them her programs. But they really do accuse you of everything that you are. She's saying y'all are demons, y'all are the villains. She's talking about a whole... She lives it. How is this not demonic? You live in the United States, okay? You benefit from the United States and its system. And you are turning to everyone that lives here and you're saying, this place doesn't have the right to exist. What are you suggesting happens? You know, it's just like when Jordan Peterson talks about people, when they talk about in the climate change argument, they say things like, too many people on the planet. And Jordan Peterson, he always points out perfectly, like, what do you mean there are too many people? Who are you suggesting has to go? And how are you suggesting they have to go? And when are you suggesting they have to go? And are you joining the people who have to go? Or are you conveniently one of those people who gets to stay? You're saying that the United States shouldn't exist. What are you suggesting happen then? What are you saying right now? Are you saying the whole country should be dissolved? Are you saying everybody here should be kicked out and has to go back to their countries of origin? So even if you haven't seen Ireland in your life, but you're white, you're Irish, you go back to Ireland, is that what you're saying? All black people go back to Africa? What are you really saying when you say this? How is this person not a villain spouting this stuff out? You know, there's a certain possession that happens in these whole little political movements. Listen, I'm not going to go on much longer. Let's just go over to Ben Shapiro. Back in the day when Ben Shapiro was cool. This isn't even that long ago. I wish Ben Shapiro would go back to this type of talk. Listen to this. He's talking about communism and why it's so evil.
Bewildered by people. I'm bewildered by people who are romantic toward communism. It is a gift of growing up in a one thing that all the communists who live in America have in common is that they live in America. Move to Cuba and then tell me how wonderful communism is without being a part of the prevailing regime. It's easy for Michael Moore to talk about the glories of the Cuban healthcare system while he has his WGA card. It's a little bit different when Michael Moore, would have to live there, which of course he never will. The people who are the most anti-communism in America are people who left communist countries, right, who actually lived in these places. There's such an inherent level of ingratitude in America right now. It's astonishing to me. People who are born on third base and think they hit a triple. People who live in the most prosperous, free, and wonderful country in the history of the world, bar none, not close. If you could be born anytime in any place, it would be right here and right now. You're guaranteed basically 8 decades on this earth of health, wealth, and ease. And you're sitting around going, it'd be better if we got rid of everything that undergirds this, and then we do stuff that's fair. And fair means what I like. Well, I'm sorry, but the world did not begin spinning when you got here. The principles that you hold are not unique to you, and your wealth is not a natural part of life. People tend to just believe that this is normal, that what happens in America is normal, that the norm of human life is this. That is so not only historically ignorant, but just ignorant of contemporaneous circumstance anywhere outside the West. If people actually had the ability to take a time machine, then they might be a little bit more grateful for what it is they have here in the United States. And fortunately, there is a time machine. It's called an airplane. All you have to do is take that airplane to a third world country, and you will quickly recognize that the United States is a damned phenomenal place.
Man, Ben Shapiro back in the day, the good old America first Ben Shapiro. I know not really. He's always had his ties and everything, but I mean, I just wish he would keep on talking like this, honestly. So great to hear. And that applies exactly to the woman I was just talking about and Kayla Carter from the first little slide that I showed you guys. You have no idea. You're living in the best place you could possibly live, and you're actually suggesting that it all go away. And it's so funny because it's almost like a nuclear strike. Because you're saying all of this should go away. Right? But you're not realizing what you're going to be taking away from yourself. Or you have this ridiculous idea that after all of the people who have power now, because the people who have money and power now are going to make sure that they have money and power afterwards. So you, who's working this pretty much fake DEI affirmative action job, you know, I'm talking about this Kayla Carter person, you're not going to be a person with power. Where do you think you're going to be? You think you're just going to be able to walk into whatever palace they have set up while the rest of us are out on these tents and small houses that everybody owns because none of us own anything and we all have to act like we're happy about it? It's incredible. It's incredible to see. Now, why aren't you considered anti-Semitic anymore if you criticize George Soros? Well, that's because George Soros's foundation, Open Society Foundation, has been found backing Israel bashing protests, literally backing Hamas attacks. They got $15 million, all of these organizations. When you see these protests pop up and you're like, who are these people hanging off of these statues, spray painting things, this and that? How did they form so quickly? Well, the organizers get paid, well, allegedly. We'll put that out there. But these organizers end up getting money from, let's move over here real quick. They get it from something. There it is right there. Tide Center. So Tide Center funds a lot of these protests, backing Hamas. In other parts of the world, it's literally backing Hamas. Here it will just be seen as being pro-Palestine, but this place pays organizers, not all the protesters, but the organizers are heavily funded so they can have their signs and everything that they need, right? And get real motivated. So let me just read this real quick. A post-examination of Open Society Foundation records show Soros grant-making network gave $13.7 million of the money through Tide Center, a deeply pocketed lefty advocacy group that sponsors several nonprofits who've justified Hamas's bloody attacks while claiming Palestinians obsessed with the eradication of the Jewish state are the real victims. Obviously, let me just be clear. Obviously, this article is a little biased. You can tell by the way that they're framing things right there. But I will say the meat of this is the fact that Soros, his foundation, who knows if he's the one signing the checks and making sure it all happens? I don't know. But one foundation that he has pays another foundation, and they end up funding organizers to do things. That's what I'll say happens for sure. And I guess Jewish people really woke up, because I even have a lot of Jewish friends, but I had a conversation with one of my Jewish friends, and I'm like, yeah, you know, people are always getting called anti-Semitic when they criticize Soros. And right away, he's like, man, that guy. And this guy's like real Jewish. He's like, that guy is he's not Jewish like I'm Jewish. And I love that I could hear him say that, because he's so He's so on that side, which is fine. It's his religion, tribe, whatever. But for him to understand that that guy is not representative of you. The same way I look at like black celebrities and I'm like, they don't represent black people. Not at all. They do more harm than good, and they're paid to do it, and they know that they're doing it, and it's intentional. Same thing with Soros. So once that started happening, once people started seeing what he backs, I guess the Jewish community kind of looked at him like, you are Jewish, but you're doing terrible things. Any Jewish person that loves Israel does not like George Soros whatsoever. Let's move on to Jordan Peterson. Last clip, Jordan Peterson just talking about failed communist regimes and how terrible they are. Let's go.
It was exactly the antithesis of good. It was precisely the antithesis of good. But that wasn't all. I mean, there's the People's Republic of China. That's a different country, like seriously a different country, right? Different tradition, different language. How many people died in China under Mao? No one knows. Same issue with the Soviet Union, although Mao was a bigger monster than Stalin, and that's impressive, because there's Hitler, there's Stalin, and there's Mao. And of the three, Mao was probably the worst. He's still revered in China. Maybe that accounts for their affinity for North Korea, which could still destroy us all, the remnants of that horrible state. Maybe 100 million people died in China during the Great Leap Forward. That's a hell of a leap forward. Well, maybe it wasn't 100 million, maybe it was only 40 million. But as I said before, when you're counting in the tens of millions, your point's already made. And then there was Cambodia and the killing fields, and Bulgaria and East Germany and Romania and the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, that's North Korea, and Vietnam and Ethiopia, Hungary, etc., etc., etc. It was never a successful communist state. Cuba, I suppose, came closest, but it was radically... the Soviets poured money into Cuba, so that doesn't really count. So then the first question was, well, are these Marxists motivated by love or hatred? Well, is it love or hatred that produces 100 million dead people? And is that enough evidence or not? And if it's not enough evidence, if you think to yourself, well, that's not enough evidence, it was never really given its a proper try. It's like, well, what would have been a proper try? See, I always think when I hear someone say that, I know what you think. You think in your delusional arrogance that you understand the Marxist doctrines better than anyone else ever has, and that if you were the one implementing those doctrines, you would have ushered in the utopia. That's what you mean when you say that. And, they say, and there's an idea in the New Testament that there's a sin, it's the sin against the Holy Ghost. If you commit that sin, no one really knows what it is, that you can't be forgiven. And I would say, well, if you want a candidate for the sin against the Holy Ghost in the 21st century, the statement, real communism was never tried, with the underlying idea that if you had been the person implementing it, it would have worked, I think that's a pretty good contender for something for which you should never be forgiven.
Amen to that. 100%. And that's exactly what these people who are, you see them in the streets right now on my other channel. I did a whole video about it. I got really heated. But you see these people burning flags. You see them screaming death to America. They have no clue what they're doing. They have no clue how good they have it. Do you think you could be in Iran and scream death to Iran? You think you could do that? You couldn't even be in Jamaica and scream death to Jamaica. You know what they would do to you? You have no idea. Those people have no clue how good they have it. And that was the perfect question. Is it love or is it hatred? Because they position themselves like it's all for these minorities and that they're trying to help these communities. and that they just want equality. And those people there, those elite billionaires, white, they're the problem. They've had it too good for too long. And they're positioning it like, I just have so much love for the working class. I just have so much love for these people, this community and this community. I have so much love for you immigrant. I have so much love. But but what you're suggesting would impact those people worse than anything. Far worse than what's going on now. Far worse. It's just, so is it love or is it hatred? Is it love of the black community, or is it the hatred of, white people who you think are evil? Is it for the love of immigrants or for the hatred of patriots? Like, what's really fueling it? Well, it's like, look at the results. Look at the result you're gonna have. Was defunding the police out of love, or was it out of hatred? People say it was out of love, but look at the results. The black community didn't want it. They got it. It was worse for them. It went from people who were stricken by poverty to people who were like working class, middle class. They didn't want it. It's terrible for them. Now crime's getting out of control. Was that out of love or hatred? Whoa. You can't tell. I say hatred. I think there are people who hate the country and the system so much that they're even willing to see themselves suffer to have the people who they feel have it too good go through the same pain that they're going to end up putting themselves through. It's absolutely ridiculous, man. I just wanted to show you guys that. I know it was a lot. We're like at 46 minutes here. Appreciate you if you're still here. Just wanted to wrap it up by saying subscribe, share, like. It all helps tremendously. And other than that, I'm out.